Welcome back to Health and Wealth. I'm Ana Ramos. Today's episode is about something we all live inside of, but rarely think about as part of our well-being, our homes. Not in terms of style or design trends, but as an environment that is constantly interacting with our nervous system. The light we wake up to, the noise we hear or don't, the way a space allows us to focus, rest, disconnect, or stay on edge without realizing it. My guest today, Sarah Morrissey, is the founder of Cocoon Mode, and her work is centered on a field called neuroarchitecture, the study of how our surroundings shape our physiology, emotions, behavior, and cognition. In simple terms, it looks at how the spaces we live in influence how our body responds to stress, how our mind functions, and how supported or depleted we feel over time. This conversation isn't about creating a perfect home or slowing life down. It's about understanding how to design environments that support well-being, especially for people whose lives move quickly and carry real responsibility. If you've ever felt calm the moment you walk into one space or tense in another without knowing why, this episode will help make sense of that. So take a breath, settle in, let us begin. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. I know you're joining us from London today after your little whirlwind of travels that you did. So first and foremost, I want to say welcome to the Health and Wealth podcast.
Thank you. And it's been a pleasure to be asked to appear on this show. So really, really grateful. Thank you.
I'm so glad. And, like I've done with everybody else, every other guest, I'm like, this is just a conversation. And I really wanted to make sure that, the people that I choose, or I should say they choose me to come onto the podcast as well, it's just everyday things that people need to hear, right? And hear from a very different perspective. And, so when you and I met, I was so excited to bring you onto the podcast because, it has a lot to do with me as I was looking into what I was going to do into my new home. So today's theme or today's conversation, it's all about neuroarchitecture or neuroarchitecture. So I'm very, very excited to talk about that. But before we talk a little bit about that, Sarah, one of the things that I've been able to learn through my own journey, right, is that our home is not just a backdrop to our lives. It's our home truly affects how we sleep, how we even eat, how we feel, how our nervous system reacts. Tell us a little bit more about that. Why is it that our home can play a very significant role into our overall well-being?
Yeah, I think if we look at, as we say, the world we live in today, post-COVID, prior to COVID, you left your home to go to work. As an example, you spend most of the day out of the home, you were there for a few hours in the evening, went to bed, left again the next day. Now the world has changed where people are either 100% working from home or hybrid working, or we're actually spending more time in the home. And statistically, since COVID, it's been shown we spend actually 80% of our time at home. And traditionally, your home was somewhere you lived, somewhere you stayed, and it's no longer like that anymore. With our homes, we're spending so much time in there now that our environments that we live in is really, really key as to how much it influences us psychologically, emotionally, and also with our nervous system, which is where neuroarchitecture comes in.
Okay, so you brought that word. Tell us, what is neuroarchitecture? I mean, when I came across it, I was like, what is this? Because I started talking a lot about neurofinance, right? And I come across neuroarchitecture. I said, I have to know more about this. And then I came across you. So tell us in simple words, what is neuroarchitecture?
So the simplest way to think and explain neuroarchitecture is how your space affects your brain and your body. Okay. So we, as humans, we process our environment through our senses, what we see, what we hear, what we feel, and that inputs straight into our system that regulates various different things from stress to our attention and our mood. So to give you an example would be natural light, for example, has a major impact on our nervous system and sleep. Spatial layout affects how easily your brain can process your environment and move through your spaces, so room to room. And even subtle things like clutter and noise can have a major increase in our cognitive fatigue. So, what we do as a brand is we take the science, we translate it into design. So, a home just no longer looks good or is no longer about the aesthetics. It's actually now a home that supports the function of your body.
I think that's so beautiful and so brilliant because I've seen my own taste in design have changed, over time. And what are some of the trends? So as we, as a society, as individuals, are becoming a little bit more aware about our nervous system and hence neuroarchitecture, what are some of the trends that you've seen? What are some of the shifts that you have seen from traditional way of organizing our homes, right, to the flow that we create today?
Yeah, so traditionally homes were very much about aesthetics, trends, furniture, design. And I'm not saying none of that can't apply anymore. It can, but I think it's now evolved into our home is about performance. So traditionally, it was always about how something looked, whereas now the neuroarchitecture approach is now shifting to the focus of asking yourself, how does this space perform for the person that's living in it? How does this space work for me where I'm going to spend the next 8 hours working? And an example would be a home office. Okay. So, where a space can be beautifully put together, it can also still be quite stressful to be in that space. So, maybe the lighting, for example, might be too harsh at night, or the acoustic creation might just feel quite tense or just too much going on visually in that space for a number of hours that you're going to actually be in that space.
So is it more individually? Like, for example, I tend to like more of a minimalist look, right? And to me, the reason I do that is because it kind of clears clutter for me because I deal with so many people's lives and their clutter, right? And I'm trying to create clarity out of their clutterness. And so for me to be able to give that, my home has to show flow, peace, minimalism. But then there's other homes that people actually need to have more things on display. And tell us a little bit about that. Is that more like a personal preference that it makes our system react differently, our nervous system, or is it a learned behavior? Tell us a little bit more about the shifts, the differences that people have and preferences.
Yeah, so I think I'd start with asking certain questions, things like, how does this space or my home support me? How does it help my nervous system regulate? Is my current space that I'm spending a lot of time in impacting my sleep? And often it can just be subtle changes that can have a huge impact. So it is really about designing more for the human experience and not just for a visual outcome. I can give you like some examples of this. So for me, I see the home being a sanctuary, and it's no longer about how it looks. It has to be how it makes the body feel. So I would certainly look at things like starting first with regulation. I would start by reducing things that would overstimulate you, like harsh lighting or noise, for example. Then my secondary look would be at sensory balance, just to sort of make sure the space feels coherent, it's not overwhelming, but also not too empty as well. So that touches on the minimal, and I like to have a lot within my space. The third alignment is really designing your home around how you actually want to live in it, as opposed to how it should actually look, which is very, very different. And then when you start building a home to fit in with those three components, you start to notice a nervous system that recognizes that and starts to then react to those three steps of the regulation of your nervous system.
I think it's so brilliant that as we're studying, our nervous system more and more and more, we're starting to see how just everyday life relates to it, right? Everything from our careers, our finances, our health, how everything at the end of the day comes down to our nervous system and how that makes us feel. And I'm actually excited about that movement that's happening, because I think that at the end of the day, that's really what feels like home, right? And it has to create that ease, that place where you take breath. And the first time I saw this is I work with a stress management coach, right? When I was in corporate America, and I remember him walking into the house because he would come in at 7 in the morning. And the first time he came in, Sarah, he just literally he opened the door and he just went, "Hold on, I got to take this moment in." It was like he just like, I have to breathe this home in. It is so beautiful and so peaceful. And it shocked me at his reaction towards it. But that ultimately, that's how I felt every time I came home. It was no matter what was happening in the day, that was the place where I calmed my nervous system down. And I designed it just for me. And that's the first time I saw the power of it.
Yeah, and to add to that as well, again, traditionally, if you think about it, we always left our home to, even if it was to go to a day spa, even if it was to do wellness travel, to get that feeling of, I feel like the weight is off my shoulders. I feel like I'm resetting. I feel like I'm out of some of the bad habits that I have when I am at home, that stuck in a rut sort of feeling. And my view is, why should we have to feel the need, as important and as great as it is to do those things, go to a day spa, go and do your wellness travel? Who says we can't have that feeling in our own home? And it doesn't necessarily, like you said, have to be the entire property. You can have a designated space or a designated room. I know I have in my home, my main lounge. I know if I sit in there with a cup of tea, it's not just because it's got great lighting coming in and the sun comes in when the sun does come out, but it's the feeling that room gives me. And straight away, it's not even just the feeling of, oh, I feel like I can have a breather. I can physically feel tension ease if I've come off a lot of meetings, or I can feel nearly like my muscles, especially upper body and my chest where we hold tension, I can feel it relax. And that space, having 15, 20 minutes in there, and often sitting in silence, is enough for me to say, okay, I've reset now for a period. I'm ready to start again. And that's what I'm saying. Sometimes people who I've spoken to have felt, oh, I need to do a huge investment and I need to do this big renovation project. Yes, people do that, but you don't have to do that. There's subtle changes you can make, and everyone can just create that one area in their home to give them that experience and feeling that they get when they go to a day spa, for example, or they do wellness travel.
I think that's such a beautiful little biohack, which we haven't even gotten into the biohacks yet, right? But just having that one space, one room, or that one, just that little corner where we allow our nervous systems to sit within us and calm it down. And I know that through your studies and through our conversations, you mentioned that neuroarchitecture has 4 pillars. Can you tell us a little bit more about the 4 pillars and go a little bit deeper into what each one is?
Yeah, so the 4 core pillars and lenses, as I call them, through neuroarchitecture, is we have the physiology, so that's the body element. So things like light, air quality, temperature. Good example is sleep. Okay, so all of those affect your sleep, your energy, stress level. Then we move into the emotion side of it. So this is where the environment has an immediate impact on how you feel. The nervous system responds extremely quickly to things like lighting, softness, materials, and overall harmony as well. The third area is our psychological behavior. And this is really about how you live in that space. The layout, does it support your habits or does it tend to create friction? And the cognitive areas then is your ability to really focus and think clearly. Is a space visually or acoustically overwhelming? Does it drain you mentally or does it make you feel relaxed? And when you bring those four pillars together, these are all happening at the same time, and the brain doesn't separate these. It's an experience that we do naturally day in, day out, whether we're in our home, whether we're outside, whether we're in the office, whether we're in a shopping center or a restaurant. Our brain naturally brings these four pillars together without us being aware of it. But what we are aware of is the feeling the body gets. So when people get that anxious feeling, sometimes in crowds, overwhelming in restaurants, if you've actually had a really stressful day and you go straight to a restaurant, some people can feel that just the noise of chatter, the noise of music, the noise of cutlery can be extremely overstimulating for them. So, and that's what those four pillars are naturally doing in the body. And then the body's just reacting to that component together.
I love how smart our bodies are. I think our bodies are smarter than we are actually, Sarah.
Yeah, extremely smart. And which is why our brain protects us so much. So we talk about fight and flight and so on. And that's that natural coping mechanism as well within the body. Yeah.
I think that's brilliant. And so, what I hear you saying is basically it's not about making this home Instagram ready, right? It's about creating a home that serves us, that serves our, serves our every aspect of us living, and to be honest with ourselves, like what are the true things that bring me joy and bring me happiness? By just saying that, I remember Marie Kondo, right? Does this bring me joy? Does this, everything is, does this bring me joy? And I think that was such a beautiful way to, like I even clean my closet that way, right? I clean my environment that way. I clean a lot of things by just asking myself, how does this make me feel? Does this truly bring me joy, right? Does this make my soul smile? And
Exactly, exactly. And I'm exactly the same. So I have this thing at the weekend. If I don't feel like my house is a certain way, I cannot go out because to know to come back that I then have to do it will just overwhelm me. So for me, having my drawers organized, my kitchen organized, I do label everything. And, some people might say, you're a bit extreme with
OCD, they'll start going, that's OCD.
OCD. But for me, I think it's two things. It's discipline and structure because a structured home is a structured mind. Okay.
Yes.
So an organized home is an organized mind. And if your mind is organized, or your home and mind are aligned and organized, then a lot of the things that make you get overwhelmed, you won't get so overwhelmed. And your point on Instagram ready is really, really interesting because obviously we see lots on Instagram at the moment, okay? And this perfect, everything's perfect. And actually, a true sanctuary is not actually about perfection. It's actually about how your nervous system responds when you're in that space, okay? So it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just being more about awareness, you as a person noticing how your current environment makes you feel at different times of the day, because how you feel in the morning is very, very different to how you feel in the evening on a work day, to how you feel in the morning on your day off on a Saturday, Sunday, if they're your days off, to how you feel in the evening. So for me, I see, to create that sanctuary without that perfection label it's really about the regulation elements. Okay. So getting that support for calm, balancing lighting, reducing that sensory noise, the spatial clarity to allow the nervous system settle down. And then your sensory element is, again, it's not about everything being minimal. It's about alignment. Does light, sound, texture, layout, does it actually work together? And does the brain not have to feel like it's scanning and lots of like stressors happening in the environment just so you can try and focus and relax? And then there's the final stage, really, for me, is around behavior alignment. Does your space support you? Again, like I said previously, how you want to live, reduce that friction in daily routines, because we do live as humans, we live in routine and we actually thrive on structure and routine, and what gives us those positive behaviors in order for us to be able to reset, focus, have that connection. But the key thing is the connection, and all of those must feel effortless. The minute it feels like a chore, then the body will start reacting. It's too much. I'm overstimulated. I'm feeling stressed. So it's getting that balance, which is why I'm saying perfection is not needed. It's getting that balance that aligns, that it feels like an effortless approach and naturally blends into your day-to-day life.
I think that's brilliant, and thank you for making me feel better, because all this time people told me I had OCD on that. Because to me, I just need to make sure the jars are a certain way. But it's all because when I open the drawer, whatever it is, I always measure it by, does it alter me? Does it alter my system, or does it allow my system to relax?
Yeah,
And when I have structure, when I have order, I can relax and I can be creative, and I can start listing all the benefits that happen when I'm at ease, right? And
exactly.
and that's why I find this subject so brilliant, because I'm like, this is amazing. Like, people need to know about this, because I think that we started the conversation with our homes are no longer just a backdrop to our lives, but it's almost like, in Spanish you say el nido. It's the essence, it's the core of where nervous system begins, right? It's not just a home, but it's where is the womb of where nervous system sits. And
Exactly.
and if we look at that, and by the way, the name of your company is Cocoon, right? And I just thought, oh my gosh, it is the womb of our lives, right? It's who we are. So do tell us a little bit about, how did you come up with this name? What inspired you? Because you and I have lived very similar lives. I mean, it's like we're both in the financial and the banking industry, and then we both came across different things that happen in our lives. And I went more into, we both connected to the nervous system, but I went more into how money and finances and help us with our nervous system, or how our nervous system reacts to it. And you went into the home side of things. So I find this so interesting. So tell us about the name of your company and give us like an overview of what exactly you do, Sarah, because I am awed, I'm fascinated, and I'm so glad that our paths actually cross at this moment in our lives.
No, thank you. It's definitely been a journey and an ever evolving journey, hence the name Cocoon. So I guess I came up with the name Cocoon because I'd looked at it as, look at a butterfly. Where does it start? It starts in that cocoon, evolves into the caterpillar, then into a butterfly, and then butterfly colors change as the butterfly evolves. And I wanted to apply that to us as people. We change all the time. We evolve, we grow. We're not the same people we were 5 years ago. We're not even the same people we were 1 year ago. And I feel like in life today, life is so precious. I worked in an environment, financial services, for a number of years, which was extremely stressful. My life really was work, 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 and family for a long, long time. And it really did take a quite a serious accident to really make me step back and evaluate life as a whole. And I made a decision that I was going to step away from financial services over a period of time and really do something new. And I remember people saying to me, oh, it's a big decision to make. You've done this career. How are you going to do it? And I did it through sacrifice. It was very much had to make big personal sacrifices, working very long hours, 7 days a week. It's had its ups and downs in building this brand. But I always come back to the brand name and what it stands for. And Cocoon Mode V is two parts. It's the lifestyle element, but also the ever evolving, the ever growing. And even my brand is not the brand it was 18 months ago, even 6 months ago. And that's why I really resonate with that name. What we do is I chose the path to retrain and study. I said to myself, if I'm going to bring a business to the market, it's really, really critical that I understand what I'm selling. I understand the product I'm trying to bring to market. So I embarked on a master's in psychology and neuroscience through King's College. I hope to go on and do a PhD in 2028, hopefully. And it was actually during my studies that I saw where traditionally, again, the medical world in medicine is done very siloed. You see a practitioner for this specific thing or this specific condition or this specific advice. And I saw the opportunity again post COVID to see how the world was living. We are living in a world where there's a lot more stress, there's a lot more anxiety. We now have certain conditions like more awareness, I guess, around ADHD and what's coming out of those that sort of research and analysis as well. And I saw the connection with neuroarchitecture through my neuroscience and how much the body and the nervous system really, really does control us on a day-to-day basis. And actually, neuroarchitecture as a subject is not new. It's again used in commercial space like hospitals, schools, and sensory rooms, even in airports. Like I know back in Ireland, Shannon Airport actually has a sensory room that you can take young children to before they board a flight, in order to help keep them calm, and especially if they have autism or ADHD, the sensory room is really beneficial for them before they embark on a flight, because the whole atmosphere of flying can be very, very overwhelming for them. And when I looked at the principles of neuroarchitecture, I said, why aren't we applying this in our home or in our day-to-day life? And that's where I then brought the link with the neuroscience into design, into architecture, and then where need be into the medical support as well.
I think that was brilliant, Sarah. Kudos to you. That's all I can say is kudos to you. I love seeing your brand involved, and I hear you because I have redesigned the Amida brand in so many different times in so many different ways, and it just keeps evolving, because that is our role as innovators, right? As pacemakers, sort of, into an industry that is ready for change, right? It's ready to hear a different message. So I'm very happy that you did this. And I know that through your company you do private consultations, you also have memberships, you can also design rooms. So I think it's brilliant. And I know that when we talk again a year from now or 6 months from now, it's going to be something completely different for both of us, But at the core, everything still comes down to the womb of who we are, right? Which is our nervous system. So
exactly.
Thank you so much. I think that's brilliant, and congratulations again. Okay, so now we're going to get to the really good stuff, the biohacks, not like in the medical terminology side of things, but what are some of the things that we can do? And you already gave us quite a few pointers, and I love the whole thing about creating your space, right? Creating that you don't have to spend thousands of dollars. But, for somebody who turns around, I open the door to my home, right? And what are the first things that we begin to say to ourselves to come to this place that we become aware of how it makes us feel? And then we begin to start making the changes. So, and some of them can be very basic changes, and some of them, we need to call someone like you and your company to say, hey, help me out here. I've got too much going on. And tell us, like, you open the door. What are some of the biohacks that people can do to immediately begin to feel that sense of ease in our nervous system?
Yeah, I think if we take the analogy of being out all day, maybe working or traveling, and you come home, is to take the first 15, 20 minutes for you. So even if that is shoes off, make a hot drink, into shower, into comfortable clothes, before you even consider cooking. What do I have to do within the home? What's next on the list for me to do right here? Take those 15, 20 minutes purely for you, and that's the first thing I would say to do. Secondly, I think something that is really key that we speak to a lot of clients that seem to struggle with is the winding down routine in the evening. So, I know people, and I've been guilty of this myself at times, I don't do it anymore, of the TV on in the bed, or the laptop in the bed. I'm just going to send that last email. My advice is 90 minutes before bed, unwind, prep for the next day. And one of the things I would recommend that I do is I have to write down, even if it's just on a post-it note, to say, I need to send that email tomorrow. I need to send an email to such person. I need to book that meeting. I need to do that call, because I know that if I go to bed with it on my mind, it's going to stay on my mind. And if I wake up at the dreaded 3 a.m., it'll be on my mind. Whereas if I just write it down, it's gone. I don't have to think about it. I've closed it till the next day. So certainly 90 minutes into the evening, wind down, hot shower, hot bath, dim lights in the evening, reading, whether that's reading in bed or whether that's reading before bed. I know, again, for myself, I can read longer not in the bed. I don't know what it is. It's in the bed. I can't get past 3 pages and I'm asleep. Whereas if I read in my lounge or outside or in the kitchen, I can just read a couple of chapters. So the evening routine is really, really key, because that is going to set you up for the quality of your sleep. And the quality of your sleep is probably the most important thing, aside from food and eating, that we need to do as people, is get enough sleep. And it's not about the number of hours in bed. You can be in bed 8, 9 hours, but only get 30% quality sleep. It's
Right.
not great. You need to be in, you'd be better off doing 6, 7 hours and getting 100% quality sleep than 8, 9 hours and only getting 30% sleep. And a lot of that is down to your, as I say, routine in the evening, and the body recognizing that routine as well.
I think that's such brilliant biohacks, because here I was expecting you to say this color and this organizing and this. And here, from a neuroarchitecture perspective, what your biohacks were is more about getting to know your nervous system first and foremost, and knowing what triggers it, and just calming it down and getting that adequate sleep. And here you're saying that is where the beginning is. And I think that's such brilliant biohacks to have, because we hear them all the time, but sometimes we don't know why they're saying that. And I think that ultimate what you're saying is that, yes, it is tied to your nervous system, all that, but you have to begin to know yourself, so that once you know yourself, you can now look at your surroundings, and you're probably going to see your surroundings differently at that point.
Yeah, and we could come in and do a project, let's say someone's bedroom, and we can do the surroundings, but if the behavior change is not there, it's not going to work. It's not enough. And it goes back to the original points at the beginning of our conversation. It's no longer about aesthetics. You know, you can have the perfect room temperature, the perfect lighting, the perfect color scheme, the perfect textures on the bed, the duvet, the sensory sound, downing noise. But the routine for me is really, really important as well, because if you then go into bed with a busy mind and a racing mind with, oh, I never sent that email, oh, I meant to do this and I meant to do that, you're not gonna have a great night's sleep. You're gonna wake up at 2, 3 a.m. and probably want to reach for the laptop and start sending those emails. We've seen it with clients, this is the feedback we get is, I wake up and I feel like I can't go back to sleep till I send that email or till I reread that document. So the routine is really, or the structure is really, really important. And as well as humans, we're a creature of habits. Okay. So it's harder to break a habit than to create one. So breaking a bad habit takes a bit of a journey, the likes of TV on, going to bed, going to sleep with the noise of the TV on. That takes a bit of time, and you can't just do it overnight. There's a journey you need to follow to break the habit. But then to bring the new habits in, it's quicker to instigate them than it is to break a bad habit.
Well, I think that's absolutely brilliant. I think those are brilliant words for us to really think through. And I'll be sure to highlight some of those biohacks because I think they're really, really important. And Sarah, thank you so much for sharing, your personal story, your personal journey into why create the company that you created. And thank you for staying true to who you are. I mean, it's beautiful to see how you've taken all of your experience in the financial world to now build a very successful company. And I'm honored to have you here today with us. Thank you.
Oh, no, thank you. And really appreciate your time. And I've really, really enjoyed our conversation as well. It's been really good to do this.
Good. Next time, Miami, so you can take a look at my place and give me some pointers.
Definitely will. Definitely will.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sarah. And I'll see you soon.
Great. Thanks, Anna.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
When we talk about wealth being, we often focus on habits, discipline, and personal responsibility. But this conversation points us somewhere deeper, to safety. Because wealth being doesn't begin with effort. It begins when the nervous system feels safe. What becomes clear is that our environment is never neutral. The spaces we live in are constantly communicating with our body, telling it when to stay alert, when it can soften, and when it's allowed to rest. In that sense, the nervous system is the real client of design. And when a space supports the nervous system, something powerful happens. Presence becomes possible, not as an idea, but as a lived experience. One that you can feel in your body, your focus, and your energy. That's when performance stops relying so heavily on willpower, because it's no longer push, it's supported. Health, then, isn't something we step away to recover and return from. It becomes something that travels with us, through our homes, through our work, through the rhythm of our lives. Designing our environment with intention isn't about luxury or perfection. It's about creating the conditions where wealth being can actually take root. And when safety, presence, and support are built into the space around us, we don't just live better, we actually live more fully. Until next time, this is Health and Wealth.